When we hear the phrase human rights, we think, me included, of something permanent, protected by treaties, defined by laws, guarded by governments, right? But if this were to be the case, everyone would have access to a proper nutrition and clean drinking water. Every woman would be able to roam freely throughout this world without fear of harm. And every single voice, no matter how small, could speak, be heard, and legally recognized. Unfortunately, this permanency is far from the truth, because every day millions of people are denied these fundamental rights, not because the laws and resources do not exist, but because the systems meant to sustain them are inherently broken. And essentially, human rights are nothing but abstract ideals and blank promises when the structures meant to deliver them are divided. And this is because human rights do not just passively lie in courts and constitutions. They actively lie in everyday lives, in who governs energy and economic opportunity, healthcare distribution. It is even as simple as who engineers the architecture and infrastructure in our society. These are the invisible and almost unseen forces that dictate which communities get to thrive with dignity and which ones are unfortunately left behind. Because the question here is not who deserves human rights, it's who has access to the tangible systems that make them real. And until these systems work for everyone, human rights will remain unreachable for far too many. And this is why I would like to say today, human rights are not universal as we may all think. They are upstream. Let me explain. I want you all to take a moment. Imagine a river. Its water is rapidly winding through towns and villages. Downstream, so down the river, people are in harm's way because the water is coming so rapidly, clutching onto parents' arms as they bear witness to their homes submerging and crops being swept away, staying afloat on a life raft just to survive. Upon witnessing this, you feel a sharp tug in your chest because you know you can help. So you jump in and begin rescuing. You pull out one person and then another and then another. But you quickly realize, no matter your efforts, they are not enough to prevent disaster because the current does not stop flowing. And this essentially is the flow of our world today. For decades, policies have been drafted, court cases have begun, and protests have occurred, only after the most egregious human rights violations. And while support does come, it is only too late. It is only too late because by then, the damage has already been done. And while those reactive efforts I mentioned are noble, they are simply not sustainable because they are not enough. Because rarely does society take the time and go upstream to find out what pushed the millions of people in harm's way in the first place. Because the roots of inequality can't possibly lie at the bottom of the river, no. They lie at the top, where power gathers, decisions are made, and systems are designed. And I did not have to go too far in my own lives to see how these broken systems played out. Because they were in my own lives, as my parents lived realities. Growing up in an immigrant household, while navigating a life in a completely new country, they were running gas stations and restaurants. They put in everything that they could, but no matter what, it always seemed as if the systems meant to support them, to uplift them, never even wanted to meet them halfway, whether that be banks denying them loans due to thin credit or lack of a cosigner, which many with immigrant status clearly would not have, whether that be being violated, whether that be having violations for things that never even occurred. And when they did ask for help and the phone went answered, because too often it did not, they were told, oh, try again next quarter. And even then, deadlines miraculously change, and the list of invisible barriers could keep going. And the same went for my community. Everyone navigated the same maze of endless permits, regulations, and opaque rules. They were not failing by any means. They were being filtered through a system that was not meant to support them. And as I got older, I realized the same patterns I grew up with manifest worldwide in healthcare, where nearly 4.5 billion people, let that sink in, nearly half of the world's population does not have access to basic healthcare services. Not because doctors and medicines do not exist, but because of the systems of hospital network, government policies, and insurance companies dictate who receives equitable, life-saving access to care and who does not. This is not merely a gap in medicine. This is about a gap in justice. It manifests in factories and farms where approximately 27 million people are trapped in forced labor worldwide. The products they make are fulfilling million-dollar demands while they are only making pennies a day. And once again, at the top, are national, multinational supply chains and large corporations that only concentrate power and profit at the top, not batting an eye towards any form of due diligence, nor the value of a human life. Again, this is not merely inequality. This is a violation of the human right of fair work and of dignity, and the list could go on and on. I hope you are realizing that these are not just random incidents from different corners of the world, nor are they statistics of circumstance. They are the result of human rights protecting systems being designed without inclusivity and without fairness in their roots. Now, being a teenager exposed to all of this can be heavy, to say the least. I always want to make an impact, strive to make a difference wherever that may be, no matter how large or small the impact is. But I am always told that my youth is what will hinder me, and my age is my limiting factor. But I believe this perspective misses the point entirely, because youth are perfectly positioned to see gaps in systems, to understand who's being left behind, why are these resources not delivered, and perfectly positioned to ask the uncomfortable questions. And it was this very mentality that made me realize, if human rights governing structures can be engineered without fairness and equality in their roots, why can't they be re-engineered? Because humans are at the cornerstone of this progress, not any external force. So why can't we redesign and rebuild? I mean, we live in an era of innovation where technology is fundamentally transforming what it means to be human. I mean, we are in the midst of it all. So why can't we as a society come together and innovate? Innovate to make fairness promised, dignity measurable, and rights absolutely delivered. And you must be thinking, oh, how can this happen? Innovation in human rights. Well, let me tell you, the shift is not theoretical because it is already happening. And as I tell you these examples, I want you to imagine what it could be like if these innovations were applied worldwide, applicable in every continent, in every household, where they're able to bridge the gap between equality and well-deserved access. In Malawi, a country in East Africa, only 3.8% of households are connected to the national power grid. Imagine this, living a life literally in darkness. Upon living through this, locals banded together and with the support of the UN, innovated and engineered and designed solar systems that were solar powered with smart meters built into them. Upon implementing these, outages decreased by nearly 90%. Think of the amount of homes and businesses that were able to prosper. Energy was not something dependent on chance or luck, because it was innovated to be purposefully designed into the frameworks of the lives themselves. In Bangladesh, where many often suffer with climate disasters, organizations like the BRAC and Practical Action, nonprofits, banded together and engineered. They innovated homes that were purposefully raised to prevent against flooding. Now you must be thinking, oh, what a simple solution, raised homes. But no, because this required deliberate action and purpose that was meant to be inclusive. Safety was not just dependent on reactive efforts after the flooding already occurred and the damage already happened. It was guaranteed by design because people went upstream and targeted the root of the problem of infrastructure. Similarly, in Peru, early warning systems in the mountainous regions combined sensors and satellite data, as well as predictive modeling, to create emergency evacuative routes on the spot, rather than being rescued after. People were rescued before the damage even occurred. Imagine the amount of livelihoods and homes that were able to prosper just because a group of people came together, collaborated, and innovated in the first place. And similarly, in Brazil, where maternal health often plagues many, organizations once again innovated and banded together. And every time there would be any high-risk situation, alerts would be immediately dispatched, ensuring equitable care was provided, not before, not after, but before the damage was done. Healthcare was embedded into the very system itself. And what these examples and the hundreds more around the world show is absolutely astonishing. We can see that when human rights governing systems are created with sustainability and inclusivity in the first place, innovation not only protects human rights, it completely rewrites what it means to protect and to govern lives. And this is truly where the upstream change comes in, because when innovation and human rights advocacy intersect, this change is created, this upstream change, where people took the time to find out why millions of people were falling into crisis in the first place. Now you must be wondering, what does this have to do with me? And well, the answer is everything. Because no matter how old you are, no matter what stage of life you're in, no matter your aspirations, I encourage you to view yourself not as a passive bystander to injustice and inequality, but as an active innovator, because it truly only takes a few steps. First, identify the problem and notice the gaps, whether that be in your community, your neighborhood. I encourage you to understand and to see and recognize who is being left out. Why is this system delivering for this group of people, but not this group of people? Next, question the system and not the situation itself. Because again, disparity often begins upstream. And next, create change. Create deliverable action. No matter how small or big the extent of your impact is, you are having purposeful, deliberate action in the first place. Because remember, human rights are only as real as we make them. And that is something all of us in this room have the power to influence. We have the power to influence and transform these systems. So rights are accessible for all, not just many. So next time you hear the word human rights, please do not envision courts and constitutions. I want you to imagine the river. Because rights aren't static, they flow. And the direction they take depends on our innovation. Thank you.